Another day, another story. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 was a devastating fire that burned from October 8 to October 10, 1871, in Chicago, Illinois. The fire killed approximately 300 people, destroyed roughly 3.3 square miles, 9 square kilometers, of the city, and left more than 100,000 residents homeless. Causes. The exact cause of the fire is still unknown, but a popular legend attributes it to a cow kicking over a lantern in a barn owned by Patrick and Catherine O'Leary. However, this story has been widely disputed and is considered apocryphal. Welcome to Taboo Eminent Channel. Spread and impact. The fire began in a small barn and quickly spread due to a combination of dry weather, wooden buildings, and strong winds. The city's fire department, already exhausted from battling several small fires earlier, was unable to control the flames. The fire jumped the Chicago River twice, further exacerbating the damage. By the time the fire was extinguished, much of central Chicago was in ruins. Aftermath and reconstruction. In the aftermath of the fire, Chicago quickly began to rebuild. The reconstruction efforts were impressive, with new buildings constructed using fire-resistant materials like brick, stone, and iron. The disaster led to improved building codes and fire safety regulations. The rebuilding process helped establish Chicago as a major hub for commerce and industry, ultimately contributing to its rapid growth in the following decades. The Great Chicago Fire remains a significant event in American history, highlighting both the vulnerabilities of rapidly growing cities and the resilience of their inhabitants. Before the fire. In the years leading up to the fire, Chicago experienced rapid growth. By 1871, it was one of the fastest-growing cities in the United States, with a population nearing 300,000. The city's infrastructure, however, was not keeping pace with its expansion. Buildings were constructed primarily of wood, including sidewalks and even some streets. The summer of 1871 had been unusually dry, leaving the city highly susceptible to fire. The fire begins. On the evening of October 8, 1871, a fire broke out in or around a small barn belonging to the O'Leary family at 137 DeKoven Street. Fueled by the dry conditions and a strong southwest wind, the fire spread rapidly. Initial firefighting efforts were hampered by a series of unfortunate events, including a delay in sending the alarm to the fire department and a miscommunication that sent firefighters to the wrong location. The inferno spreads. Once started, the fire moved quickly. It leapt from building to building, fueled by wooden structures and the wind. The fire jumped the south branch of the Chicago River, spreading into the heart of the city. Many residents fled to the shores of Lake Michigan and the north side of the city, but the fire continued its relentless march. Key structures, including the courthouse, the Chicago Tribune building, and several hotels, were consumed by the flames. The heat was so intense that it created its own weather patterns, with flaming debris carried high into the air and deposited miles away. The fire even managed to cross the main branch of the Chicago River, which was thought to act as a natural fire break. The fire's end. The fire continued to burn until early on the morning of October 10, when a combination of diminishing winds and a light rain helped extinguish the flames. By this time, the fire had consumed an area over 4 miles long and nearly a mile wide, laying waste to central Chicago. Human toll and destruction. The human cost was significant. Approximately 300 people lost their lives, and 100,000 were left homeless. The fire destroyed 17,500 buildings, causing an estimated $200 million in damages, equivalent to billions of dollars today. Immediate response. In the immediate aftermath, relief efforts began swiftly. The city received aid from across the nation and abroad, with donations of money, food, clothing, and other necessities pouring in. Temporary shelters were erected, and plans for rebuilding were quickly set in motion. Rebuilding Chicago. The rebuilding of Chicago started almost immediately after the fire. The city implemented stricter building codes, requiring the use of fire-resistant materials. This led to the construction of sturdier, more fireproof buildings. Chicago's architects and builders quickly got to work, and within a few years, the city had not only rebuilt but also laid the groundwork for becoming a major architectural hub. Legacy. The Great Chicago Fire is remembered as one of the most devastating urban fires in American history. It serves as a reminder of the importance of urban planning and fire safety regulations. The fire's anniversary is commemorated with Fire Prevention Week, established to educate the public about fire safety. The resilience shown by Chicagoans in the face of such a disaster and their determination to rebuild their city has become a symbol of the indomitable spirit of the city. The rapid reconstruction and subsequent growth transformed Chicago into a major economic and cultural center, shaping its identity for generations to come. Individual accounts. Many personal stories emerged from the Great Chicago Fire, highlighting both the tragedy and the heroism of those involved. Catherine O'Leary. Despite being the owner of the barn where the fire allegedly started, Catherine O'Leary always maintained her innocence. The legend of her cow kicking over a lantern was a myth perpetuated by the press, and it unfairly scapegoated her. In reality, the cause of the fire was never definitively determined. Firefighters. The Chicago Fire Department was small and ill-equipped to handle such a massive blaze. Firefighters worked tirelessly, often at great personal risk, to save as many lives and buildings as they could. Captain James Horan, who led the department, later became an advocate for better fire safety measures. Residents. Many residents displayed remarkable bravery. Some stayed behind to help neighbors evacuate, while others formed human chains to pass buckets of water in an attempt to control the flames. Stories of families escaping by boat onto Lake Michigan or taking refuge in open spaces like Lincoln Park abound. The rebuilding effort. The reconstruction of Chicago was a monumental task that showcased human ingenuity and resilience. Architectural innovation. The fire spurred a wave of architectural innovation. Notable architects like Louis Sullivan and Daniel Burnham played pivotal roles in the rebuilding process. Sullivan's work laid the groundwork for modern skyscrapers, while Burnham's plan of Chicago later helped shape the city's development. Financial support. Financial aid poured in from across the country and around the world. Cities like New York, St. Louis, and London sent money, food, and supplies. The generosity of these donations helped provide immediate relief and fund the reconstruction efforts. Urban planning. The disaster highlighted the need for better urban planning. Chicago implemented stricter building codes, which required the use of fire-resistant materials such as brick, stone, and iron. The new regulations also mandated wider streets and improved water systems to prevent future fires. Lessons learned. The disaster underscored the need for stringent fire safety regulations. Modern building codes, fire alarms, and sprinkler systems are all legacies of the lessons learned from the fire. Conclusion. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 remains a defining moment in the history of Chicago and a significant event in American urban history. It highlights both the vulnerabilities of rapidly growing cities and the capacity for resilience and innovation in the face of disaster. The stories of those who lived through the fire, the lessons learned, and the subsequent rebirth of Chicago continue to resonate to this day.